Yes, we have a valid reason to believe we are number one.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Collier. I'm the head of PruExpert Labs and a senior director of learning at Prudential Corporation Asia. For those of you who are joining us again, welcome back. And if it's your first time, welcome. This is the fifth in a series of weekly sessions we are doing during these extraordinary times to help you better advise your customers and look after your businesses. They are extraordinary times. So much is happening around us with the lockdowns, as well as quarantines and what we're seeing on the news. And we just want to pause for a moment and look at the positive aspects of what's happening as well. There's so many inspiring stories happening all around us. And if you've seen Ben Lowe's presentations over the past few weeks, you'll remember the slide that he showed. There are two paths in the woods. One path you could go down talks about this happening to you and the challenges that come with that kind of mindset. Whereas the second path talks about this happening for you, where you can find opportunities rather than challenges, to do things in new ways and different ways, and to bring value to your customers. Just think how much the world has changed and how much our daily lives and business practices have been disrupted. Everything from how we school our children, to how we get our groceries, to now how we take our dogs for a walk have changed. So during these changing times, we want to make sure here at PruExpert Labs that we're giving you all of the tools and resources that you need to do well for yourself, for your families, and for your customers. The first four sessions, as I mentioned, were from Ben Lowe, talking about social media, how to create a good online presence, and how to engage your customers and begin having conversations with them. Today's session takes a slightly different turn. We have two exciting guests with us. One is from East Spring Investments, the asset management arm of Prudential. And then we have a longtime Prudential veteran who has been the CEO of two of our business units to talk about how we find opportunity in times of risk. So that's what we've got in store for you today. Before we get started, I have to show the features of Zoom so that you are familiar with how to interact with us. There are two that I need to talk about. The first is the chat feature. The chat feature is how you get in touch with us if you need to ask for technical support. It's coming up on the screen here just now. The chat feature is how you get in touch with us if you need technical support. And the Q&A feature is how you interact with us. So if you have questions or if you want to ask myself or any of our guests to go a bit further into a topic, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. Now, as we have begun doing for the past few weeks, we'd like to hear from you about what you're finding on the ground so that we can take your feedback straight back to our colleagues in Hong Kong and around the region to better support you. So let's pull up the first poll question. We wait for that to come up. The first poll question is asking you what your customers are asking for. What are they most interested in during these times? Are they interested in a longer term view with ILP products? Or are they interested in CI and protection because they're concerned about their loved ones? Are they interested in medical protection to make sure that they're covered during the pandemic? And finally, are they looking for simple and affordable products? So let us know what you've got, and we will take this feedback and bake it into our future sessions, just as we agreed to do last week when you told us you needed more help with virtual face-to-face selling. So in this case, it looks like almost half of you have indicated that our customers are most interested in medical products. That's quite interesting, but not surprising, given what we're seeing happening around us today. Let's ask the second poll question. The second poll question, now we're trying to hear from you more about the virtual face-to-face selling. Is it easier to sell more simple and affordable products? Is it easier to sell savings plans at the moment, sell a medical plan, or sell term life and CI? Which is easier for you to sell at the moment? This is different than the previous question, which asked, what are your customers interested in? Here we are asking you, what do you think is easier to sell at the moment? We'll let this run for, oh, here we go. The results. Simple and affordable products seems to beat medical plans. So that is something we will take up in next week's session, where we can talk about how to meet customer interests. If they're interested in medical products, we ought to make it easy for you all to sell those medical products to them so that they can get their needs met during these extraordinary times. Okay, so that's the poll session. Now let me introduce to you Mr. Ken Wong. Ken is a client portfolio manager at East Spring Investments. He'll be very familiar to those of you who watch Bloomberg, CNBC, or Channel News Asia. Ken is frequently commenting on the economy and the market, and that's what he's going to do for us here today. Ken, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, how does it feel to be on PruExpert TV as opposed to CNBC?
Well, it's great. It's my first time being on, but I really thank you for the opportunity to speak to so many different agents in this sort of in a new world that we live in.
Yes. Well, Ken, why don't I turn it over to you? Thanks for joining us. Let's hear from you on the market outlook and sort of an economic overview so that we can understand the context in which we are advising our customers.
Sure. Let me open up the presentation. And thanks everyone for attending the session today. What I want to do is over the next 20 to 25 minutes, give you a quick update in regards to what we're currently seeing on the ground in terms of the various different markets. And hopefully, if you do have questions, we can wait till the Q&A session, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys might have in regards to my current topics. So with that in mind, let me talk about specifically where we are, sort of today and what we were and where we were before. 2019 pictures was a lot different from where we are today. When we look back at 2019, it was very much a battle for supremacy between US and China. The global economy was gradually losing its steam. And, we started to have certain, new rules in terms of what was happening around the world. And we fast forward that to 2020, obviously 2020 pictures is a lot different, from, what we've been seeing over the past few months with COVID-19 and the global pandemic. That's created a lot more uncertainty and volatility in the marketplace. So where have we been so far? If we look at specifically the current situation when it comes to investing, basically most asset classes have fallen year to date, with the exception of US Treasuries, gold, as well as a certain emerging Asian government local bonds. Those have been really the only capital markets assets which have gone up. If you look at what's dropped the most, well, by no surprise, it's been oil prices. But if you look at also equity markets, they've fallen quite a bit as well on a year-to-date basis, with most falling on average about 20 to 30% on a year-to-date. Now, how has COVID-19 impacted markets? And specifically, where do we go from here? Well, the first thing we looked at, and I briefly mentioned earlier, was about stock markets. Stock markets globally around the world had reached its highs earlier this year in the beginning of January. We reached fresh all-time new highs, and then COVID-19 came. And as a result, markets started to correct significantly, and it was around the world, whether it be in the US, in Europe, in Japan, as well as in Asia. And then what happened? When we looked at the global central banks around the world, when COVID-19 hit, basically every single central bank started to lower their interest rates. But there was one problem and one concern. If we look at places like Japan as well as Europe, their interest rates were already close to zero, if not already at zero. And so it was very difficult for these countries to lower any more interest rates because they couldn't. And when you look at some of the bonds that were trading, they were trading negative. But here in Asia, actually, a lot of the central banks around this part of the world, whether it be in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Singapore, in China, in Korea, and so forth, they had a bit of buffer where they can actually lower their country's interest rates, which has helped. And this is why one of the scenarios we feel is that the Asian economies as a whole will get out of this, sort of current situation in a much quicker situation because of the different monetary and banking policies that their respective central banks can have. And of course, if we look at bond yields, well, it's shot through the roof. Basically, when we look at, whether it be high yield bonds, non-investment grade bonds, those yields now are significantly higher than what they were just a few months ago. And in particular, if you look at a emerging market bond, right now, an emerging market bond yields about 7.5%. While we look at the US 10-year Treasury now, the US 10-year Treasury today only yields about 0.5%, 0.5%. So there's a huge disparity now when it comes to yields for emerging markets as compared to developed markets like the US. And of course, if we look at the current economic situation, nothing looks good. Whether it be it, the PMI numbers, the manufacturing numbers, whether it be it China's retail sales, or specifically the unemployment figures being come out of the US, everything is not looking that positive at the moment. If we look at China's GDP, their first quarter GDP fell by about 6.8%. So we're expecting to see over this quarter, actually the previous quarter in Q1, and obviously during the second quarter for this quarter, economic activities are going to be still at a standstill. And of course, if we look at the oil prices, we know for a fact that oil prices has actually created an extra sort of volatility, an extra sort of negative mindset in this current juncture. Because the fact that demand for oil has now gone down significantly, we've seen how oil prices are trading well below what their historical averages were. Just a few days ago, the May future contracts actually were at negative territory because people were willing to pay just to take some of the May inventory off of their hands. So we're in this situation where markets have been very irrational, similar to what we saw back in 2008 and 2009. But of course, if we look at the current situation and we talk about the global pandemic that's going on, a similarity that we can have was back in 2002 and 2003 during SARS. As some of you might remember, back then, SARS was mostly affecting parts of China, southern China, and also Hong Kong. And in that respect, what we saw was from November up to about April of 2002 to 2003, markets fell by about 20 to 25%. But then when there was a handle on SARS and things were turning around, we saw a quick turnaround in both Hong Kong's economy and also in regards to the Hong Kong stock market. Now, obviously, there are some similarities, but then there's still a lot of differences as well with SARS and COVID-19. And we're not saying that this will definitely be a V-shaped recovery, but we are definitely seeing some signs of progress, at least in places like China, where things are gradually picking back up. Now, when we talk about China, and when we talk about sort of the market that's actually outperformed year to date, Chinese stock markets have actually performed quite well on a relative basis. The markets have still fallen, but if you look at the A-shares, A-share markets, which are stocks listed in Shanghai and Shenzhen, they only fell by less than 10% on a year-to-date basis. There's still been a lot of pinned-up demand in China, which we're now gradually seeing. And in particular, if you look at sort of some of the sectors that have done very well in China or that's outperformed, those sectors include some of the food and staples retailing sectors, household goods, and specifically these sectors as well as pharmaceuticals. These sectors have definitely outperformed, while in this sort of current market environment, you would expect some of the more discretionary spending items, like purchasing an automobile or going on a vacation. These, in particular, these type of sectors will definitely need a bit of time to recover. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, China's GDP fell by about 6.8% during the first quarter. During the second quarter, we expect China's GDP to be roughly mostly flat, right? Both the manufacturing and the services sectors are gradually coming back to line. and specifically things are gradually normalizing again. In China, we've seen schools now being back in session. In most of the largest cities like in Shanghai and Beijing, they'll be starting schools next week. And what we would expect is that by the third quarter, China's GDP to actually come back up to about 4.7%, and by the fourth quarter to normalize even further up to about 5.7%. So even though this year will definitely be a slower year, China's still going to have an economic growth roughly around 1 to 2% higher as compared to last year. And when we talk about sort of the manufacturing services sector, what we're definitely seeing in China is that things are normalizing. So if we can use China as an example, where countries effectively are able to have an effective lockdown, what we've seen is that it's been 3 months since the lockdown in Wuhan. And what we see today is the fact that the manufacturing sector and the services sectors are now operating close to about 90% levels as to compare to what it was just a year ago. So we're not entirely back to the numbers that we had last year. But specifically, if you look at where we are today, we're not that far off. And so it's been 3 months, but things are gradually coming back online. And within a matter of 1 or 2 more months, a lot more other services sectors will gradually come back online as we start seeing people traveling again in China, and specifically people going out there and buying cars as well as homes again. And when I talked earlier, I talked a little bit about the case for Asia. Why do we think Asia could actually stand out quite strongly from this global pandemic? Well, obviously, if we look at Asia's demographics, it's important to realize that by 2030, Asia is still going to have 2/3 of the global middle class population. In China and India alone, there's going to be 350 million and 380 million new entrants into the middle class over the coming decade. Basically, 88% of the next billion entrants in the middle class will be coming from Asia. So it's going to be enormous in terms of specifically the potential that we see in this part of the world. Now, if we look at the economic growth as well, overall economic growth here in Asia is not actually that bad. This year, if you look at places like the Philippines and Indonesia, India and China, we're still expecting to see a bit of growth. Now, this forecast was taken a couple weeks ago, so there can be some downward revisions. But if we look at this particular chart, what we're still expecting is that in the Philippines, we can still see economic growth. A few weeks ago, we were still expecting about 5.5%. But again, even if that dials down to about 3% or so, it's still going to be strong. It's still going to be much better than the rest of the world. And then, of course, in places like Indonesia, we could still see economic growth by about 3 to 4%. So Asia is still looking fairly strong in terms of having good, solid economics growth. But then, of course, if we look at some of the global economies like in Japan, in US, and Europe, I think it's pretty much written in stone already that their respective economies are going to be in contraction in 2020. So that is why Asia is looking, fairly, in a fairly good state at this current situation. And we look at the current stock markets when it comes to investing. Basically, all the stock markets around the world are now very attractive, or sort of still attractive to some extent from a historical standpoint. What stands out to us at the moment are places like the ASEAN markets, Thailand, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia. These particular markets and the ASEAN markets are looking very attractive. In particular, when we look at these markets, they were trading, already well below their historical valuations, and they're just become more and more attractive. So from a medium to long-term perspective, these are definitely good opportunities now when it comes to investing. Now, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you whether or not we've reached the bottom when it comes to investing in these stock markets. But what I do know is that right now we have very low valuations, coupled with the fact that we have very low expectations as well. When you have markets where the valuations are very low and the expectations are also very low, that comes to a point where investors should gradually start to think about whether or not it would be a good chance to do a dollar cost averaging approach. Again, this isn't about investing for the short term, okay? But if you're looking and if your clients are focusing to invest for the medium to longer term, there's definitely opportunities right now in the marketplace. In particular, if we look at Asia, Asian stock markets right now are trading roughly about 1.4 times price to book, which is well below their historical averages. If you look at the US, it's still trading roughly about 2.9 times price to book. You look at Europe, it's roughly about 1.5 times price to book. And you look at Japan, it's about 1.1 times price to book. So Asia is roughly on average with the European stock markets. But why is this 1.4 times price to book important? Well, this next slide is really going to be a key thing to show you, which is over the past 20 years, we've gone through global financial crisis, and also we've gone through the SARS epidemic as well. And what we saw here in Asia is that when the stock market falls below 1.5 times price to book, and we've seen this about 11% of the time, over the following 1 year on average, stock markets recovered and were up about 39%. On a 3-year basis, on a cumulative basis, the stock markets were up roughly about 56%. And on a 5-year basis, stock markets here in Asia, ex-Japan, were up approximately 84%. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that, this is exactly what's going to happen, but, we've seen over the past 20 years, when markets are trading at such low valuations, we tend to find investors who do start to get excited about the markets again. Again, using a dollar cost averaging approach really does make a lot of sense in this type of market condition. And of course, when we look at the long-term structural positives, we know for a fact that when you look at places like Singapore and when you look at places like Hong Kong, the growth is definitely, sort of there. Pictures from before, you can see here on this particular slide, and what we have today. With a lot of the infrastructure work that's been put into place, there's been a lot of productivity and there's been a lot of remarkable transformation already in the urban landscapes. And of course, then we look at places like Bangkok as well as Jakarta, where there's a lot more planned developments in the coming years ahead. And this future transformation of next generation Asian megacities will also continue to contribute to the growth that we're seeing in this part of the world. So my key messages from today's talk is that when you look at stock markets, we know for a fact that they've corrected sharply over the past few months. And there's now a lot of good stock picking opportunities. If we look at particularly the stock markets, they're already well off of their year-to-date lows, with some markets in the ASEAN markets or even in India, where they're actually off of their year-to-date lows, have been up roughly about 15 to 20% already from the lows that we have seen back in March. Asian stock markets in particular can recover very quickly with the structural positives, coupled with solid earnings and economic growth expectations that I mentioned earlier. Given the large interest rate differentials, Asian high yields and emerging market bonds are offering a very good pickup in yield. So if your investors are looking for specifically a pickup in, let's say, coupon payments or a slightly higher yield, then Asian high yield emerging market bonds could provide some opportunities. But with that in mind, you also have to be a bit careful at this current moment of the potential bond defaults that could come in the coming months ahead. But we know for a fact that a lot of central banks are trying to issue and offer a lot more liquidity into the marketplace so that we don't see a similar type of scenario that we had back during 2008 and 2009 during the global financial crisis. And of course, my final point is that with low expectations, coupled with low valuations, investors can definitely start to think about adopting a dollar cost averaging approach now, given the attractiveness of the stock markets from a historical perspective. But remember, investing is a long-term marathon. And so this type of initiative is definitely good for those investors who are looking at investing for the medium to longer term. And with that, I want to hand the floor back to Matt. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out to listen to some of the points and some of the views I have on the markets today. Matt?
Hey, thanks for that, Ken. Hey, I was just watching your presentation and was particularly struck by the slide that showed that a recent study suggests that Asian economies could still grow in 2020. Can you say a bit more about that? And how would we know, how will we know how long that will hold for? What could be other changes to the global economy that could cause us to revisit the growth forecasts for Asian economies?
I think it really depends. That's a great question. I think it really depends on the market. Because if we look at a lot of the Asian economies today, they're much more domestically driven, right? So you look at places like the Philippines, or you look at places like Indonesia, or you look at even, more in recent years, China, they're now focusing a lot more on the domestic economy. So if there is a pickup in overall consumption and overall spending within these respective countries, then we should see a growing trajectory in terms of economic growth and things to normalize by the second half of this year. But with that in mind, if let's say we had a second wave or a third wave of COVID-19, which then forces the respective economies to shut down again, that will definitely have a deep impact on Asia. But as I alluded to earlier, we do have a lot of the Asian central banks, if needed, still have the monetary policy bullets to actually lower interest rates further to try to help stimulate their respective economies.
You say the Asian central banks still have
Correct.
some room to lower interest rates.
Correct.
Here. And that study then, if I understand it correctly, is premised on a first wave of the pandemic and how we see those curves playing out now.
Correct. And the thing is that, we look at, China as an example because, things were found there initially. They're now gradually opening up the economy. So, things are coming back online, right? When you look at pictures of, Apple stores, and when you look at specifically, places of supermarkets and the shopping malls, people are now going back out to consume again. You have to remember, there's a lot of pinned up demand from a lot of consumers being home for the past couple months. So when the economy's open and when things open up, you're going to have a lot of this pinned up demand that's been held, sort of been held at home because they couldn't consume, to all just come out at once. So, if things gradually do start to, let's say, things start to open up again, then you will have a sharp pickup in a lot of consumption, and not just only in China, but we would expect from a lot of the other countries here in Asia as well.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ken. These are great points, and we'll keep them in mind for the Q&A session. So we'll see you back shortly. For now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Tan Karhor, who'd be familiar to many of you. Karhor has been with Prudential in different capacities for more than 20 years. He was CEO of Malaysia and also CEO of CITIC Prudential in China. Karhor, welcome.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Prudential. A big hello and good morning.
Karhor, you're familiar with the Prudential crowd, right?
Exactly. I've been I may say I've been growing up with Prudential. I've been more than 20 years with Prudential. Yeah.
And in Malaysia too, yeah. Tell me a bit more about your experience in Malaysia. I think there's something that you might be particularly proud about.
Correct. I grew from rank and file. When I first started in Malaysia in 1990, we were ranked number 9 among the market players. But of course, being a Prudential man, we always have a big vision. Yeah, we always stay positive and excited about the market, regardless whatever the big environment. And we started to go to be number 1. And that's why after about 18 years, we managed to bring the company to number 1 in the industry. But I just want to share a little bit of this excitement with you, because when this conversation started, I heard about the song, We Are Number 1.
Yes.
That is precisely the song that had been developed during my time in Malaysia. I was part of it. And for those of you who understand Mandarin, the Chinese lyric is actually written by me. Oh, yes. Yeah. I feel so proud. Yeah.
That's great. So I've been with Prudential for about 2 years now. You have me beat by a factor of 10. But I have to say, when I joined Prudential and I went to my first agency event, I get goosebumps now just thinking about the goosebumps that I got then when I walked into that room and heard our agents singing the Prudential is Number 1 song. It's just so electric, the energy and the passion that you can feel in the room.
Yeah. I guess that's the spirit of Prudential. And that has actually brought us from when I first started, there are only 3 markets, the Hong Kong, Singapore, and Malaysia. And to today, we are in so many markets, and we are one of the biggest player in the market. So, and that's the spirit. We want to be number 1. As a Prudential man, We do not compromise, our status, and that's only one thing. We want to be number one.
Yeah. Well, we could get into the lyrics. One of my favorite lyrics is, "We have a sunny disposition.
Yeah.
We'll overcome the odds." I
Correct.
love that line.
Yeah.
With a sunny disposition, we will overcome the odds. And I think that's part of what you're going to talk to us about today.
Exactly.
Okay. Finding opportunities during times of risk.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
Karhor, we'll turn it over to you. And
Sure.
let
me
give your
start
presentation.
my slide. Yeah. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I want to share the first slide, yeah, about me, but forget about the lengthy wording. Just focus on the red color, the wording. More than 21 years. I want to highlight this is because over the last 21 years, we have gone through many challenges. Yeah, we have gone through a few financial tsunami, global financial crisis. We have gone through the SARS, and in Malaysia, we have gone through the OCC, the guideline changes and all that. Yeah, I'm happy and glad to inform all my fellow colleagues in Prudential. And how did we overcome it from three market to become what we are today? That is, we possess something that a lot of the players do not have. That is, we have the ability to always see opportunity behind the crisis. Yeah. And that has been the spirit of Prudential. And that was the spirit of the song that we have been written. You know, when we wrote the song, we are still far from number one. But instead of the name of the song is "We Will Be Number One." But at that time, we already determined, we already set our mind, no, it's not we will be number one. But instead, we already set our mind that we are number one. We already see it in our mind. Okay, so exactly the same today. Today, the whole world has been hitting with this COVID-19 pandemics. I know many people are struggling. Many people are confused. They are demoralized, frustrated. But doesn't necessarily you have to be like that. Okay? Are there opportunity behind this crisis? That's exactly the topic that I'm going to share with you in the next 20 to 25 minutes. Yeah. I hope this will really ignite the fire within you and you start to turn around. Yeah. So what do you need to do if you really want to achieve the A+ result during the crisis? Let's stop for a moment. In this crisis, if you see my topic, I'm not suggesting you to just get a mediocre result. Instead, I want you to have an A+ result, and you can do that. You can do that. Yeah. But what do you need to have is you need to have the 2A, the awareness and the action. Yeah. If you have this 2A, then it will bring you the third A, and it's not only the A, but the A+ result. Yeah. So stay tuned. I'm going to share with you. Yeah. So, but before I even go there, what is awareness? Let me start with awareness first. A lot of people talk about awareness. What is awareness? Let me give you a real story, okay? There was a famous artist who actually loved to draw pictures of animals. So one day, when he was in this village, completed this painting of the chicken. And then after that, he saw the object that he was drawing, the real chicken, and he saw this chicken was so cute. I'm not sure whether you want to keep it or you want to eat it, okay? So he actually went to the farmer and said, "Mr. Farmer, can I exchange this picture with your real chicken?" Ladies and gentlemen, guess what will be the reply of the farmer? The farmer, looked at this artist and with a very odd feeling. And in his mind, he's probably thinking, "Are you mad? Or are you a con man? You try to exchange a picture with my real chicken." No way. So the farmer actually rejected this artist. But without realizing, 2 weeks later, in one of the arts exhibition, this painting was actually sold at a price of 86,000 US. Whereas the chicken, all in all, maybe 100 US. So if you understand this, you probably know that this farmer actually losing out an opportunity of close to 86,000 US. Yeah, the opportunity is in front of him, presented to him already. But because of lack of awareness, he didn't capitalize on it. He didn't even grasp it. Yeah. So if you look at statement that I put underneath that. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me, I've been 35 years in the insurance industry. In this business, we don't lack of opportunity, but we always lack of awareness. We are unable to see the awareness, the opportunity that are forthcoming. And as a result, we just let it go like that. So to me, I feel very bad. I feel very sad. That's why this period, pandemic lockdown, yeah, I've been sharing for over 40 to 50 sessions online, keep telling people that you need to capitalize on this unprecedented opportunity. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to ask you, a very honest question. Yeah, during this period, I asked many people, yeah, are you seeing crisis or are you seeing opportunity? Because to be victory, you need to see opportunity. But interestingly, many people, just like the polling that Matt was just doing now, many people told me, they say, teacher, in this period, I see opportunity. But I asked them, is that real? They say yes. They say yes. But then I asked them, do you have this two or no? The awareness and the action. Okay. So then I go on telling them, don't give me the certain answer first. Let me do a check on you. Let me do a check on you. Just like during this period, everywhere you go, people will check on your temperature. So for all the insurance agents, because I'm coaching across the 10 market in Asia and in many company, many agency, I do this check with all my people, my students. I said, let's do a check. And please answer this check honestly. All right? And at the end of this check, simple check, you will know whether you are sitting on the crisis or you are sitting on the opportunity. All right? What are these checks? I call it the READ check, R-E-A-D. Okay? It will tell you the reality. Yeah. So what is R? During this period, are you actually getting better result than before? Okay? And number two, during this period, every morning when you wake up, are you getting more excited or not? And the three, during this period, do you stay more active than your normal time before the pandemic? And more important, ladies and gentlemen, ask yourself, during this period, are you more disciplined? Because you have so much thing to do. Yeah, your time management, your activity management, and all that. Are you more disciplined or not? If the answer to these four indicators, they are all yes, 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 I congratulate you. You're on the opportunity side. But if the answer, some of it not sure or no, no matter what you tell me, how positive you are, but I have to tell you the truth, you are on the crisis mode. Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, yeah. So now in the next 15 minutes or so, I hope I can pull you across from the crisis to the opportunity. And if you are sitting on the opportunity, I can uplift you from the opportunity to the victory. So I'm going to share the next 15 minutes with you because I have so much thing to share. I may go a little bit fast, so I need you to be a bit more attentive to me. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, yeah. First awareness I'm going to share with you. I think in many countries, like Singapore, Malaysia, before that China, we have a complete lockdown. And in some places, you are advised to stay at home. But regardless, I think during this period, everywhere you go, you have been advised by your government to stay at home. But even stay at home, you have a choice. What is your choice? Do you choose the A, B, C, D, or E? Okay. But I was sad because I've seen many people during the stay at home, they choose the A. What do when they stay at home? They're arguing at home. That's why today you see the domestic violences. The cases has been rocketing up. Yeah, it was sad. Instead of staying out, they're arguing at home. And then of course, some of the people, particularly the agency people, they are boring at home. I've seen so many agents who put up on the Facebook, the Twitter, and all that. Malaysia, we have gone through the 3 phases of lockdown. We call it the movement control ordinance. During phase 1, they sleep until 8, 9 o'clock. But before that, they wake up at 7 o'clock. During the phase 2 lockdown, they sleep until 10, 11 o'clock. And when it comes to phase 3, many of them actually say that they even feel proud to say, I can skip my breakfast now, I sleep until lunchtime. So from what the responses, They actually indicated to me that they are boring at home. They don't know what to do. Yeah. And a big majority of the agents are choosing this. And the C is even worse, even more people doing that, complaining at home. They complain everything. They complain the cat, their dog, their neighbor. They complain the government. They complain everything. They complain everything. Yeah. They start to be more picky. Okay. But ladies and gentlemen, beside the ABC, can you choose the D? Doing work from home. Yeah. But for prudential people, I want to suggest to you, not only D, I want you to be in the E mode. Yeah. What is E? I want you to excel from home. Okay. Because this period is the best moment for you to pick up new skill, for you to pick up new thing, new habit, for you to start to learn more. Yeah. And for you to start to familiar with the new world order and all that. So you can actually excel from home. Yeah. And please bear in mind, what you choose is what you get. Yeah. What you choose is what you get. So today, after listening to this session, I want you to be silent for a short moment and then look at this file. Ask yourself, what is your choice? Yeah. Interestingly, because a lot of people unknowingly, subconsciously, they choose the A, B, and C. Yeah. It's D and E. So prudential, please choose the E. Yeah. Tell your mind, I want to excel during this period because 90% of people choosing A, B, and C. I want to be different. I want to be emerge to be a winner. Let me choose at least the D and the E. Okay, so that's the first awareness. What is the second awareness? You see the big picture, the alert, 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 red alert. What is that alert? The second awareness, I want to caution you. After 21 days, new habits will be formed. Okay, and we all know this pandemics will hit the whole world for more than 2 months. When more than 2 months, which means there are more than 3 cycles of 21 days. Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, be very careful. Yeah, you have to be mindful. During this period, are you developing new productive habits? Or are you subconsciously, unknowingly, you are developing the new unproductive habits? Yeah. 21 days, form a habit. But after 63 days, this habit will be anchored so strongly and it become your character. And just imagine when it becomes your character, it will create your new result. Yeah, it is going to determine your new result, not for short, for a long, long time. And it may actually ruin your whole career. So prudential, be very careful of this second awareness. Don't take it lightly because the environment is like that. It is so easy for us subconsciously to tune on to the negativity and to get developing the new unproductive habits. All right, so this is the second awareness. The third awareness, what should be your focus during this period? Between the attitude and ability during this period, of course, these two are important, but during this period, the crisis period, which one more important? Okay, I want to let you know, during good time, ability is more important than the attitude because the big environment is okay, everything goes smooth. Yeah, you just need to flow along. But during the tough time, ladies and gentlemen, attitude outweighing your ability so much. Because I have students who are TOT, but this period, they're actually doing nothing. After almost 50 days, they do nothing. Yeah. And yesterday, she just called me. She said, teacher, I'm worried that I may not hit my TOT now. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the skill set is the same. But what has actually changed is her attitude. Yeah. That's what we are saying. Tough time never lasts. But tough people not only do, but they emerge greater. So this period, every morning when you wake up, what should be your focus? Check your attitude. Switch your frequency to the positive side. Instead of allowing the negative energy to keep harming you and unknowingly. Yeah. So check every morning, just like you do your temperature check your attitude. Yeah, check your attitude. Okay. So this is the third awareness. What is the fourth awareness? The fourth awareness is you need to uphold your PCA spirit. And I'm so happy today I'm speaking to all the PCA people. That's the spirit, the PCA spirit. What is PCA spirit? Ladies and gentlemen, as what Ken just now mentioned to you, after listening to Ken, I'm so excited, he actually opening up a bigger, although I already opened up the positive window, but Ken helped me to open up even bigger, because Ken has actually shown you with all the statistics. Our external environment is actually full of opportunity. Yeah. So what Ken mentioned just now, COVID-19 pandemic is a temporary phenomenon. But you and I, we are in the life insurance business. It's going to be for long. That's why I put a very strong words here. It is insane for someone to allow a temporary phenomenon to affect your lifelong planning. Just think about it. This COVID-19, maybe it lasts for another month, another 2 months, worst come to the worst, another 3 months. So all in all, maybe in about 5 to 6 months or even 7 months, 8 months, it's a temporary phenomenon. But how can you allow a temporary phenomenon to actually completely, damage, spoil all your lifelong planning? Yeah. So you should not allow that to happen. So during this period, what must you do? What must you do? Ladies and gentlemen, the PCA spirit. What is the PCA spirit? Yeah, remain PCA. Don't go anywhere. P mean you stay positive, your attitude. But very important, you need to stay active, because the moment you leave yourself idle, if you are not active, easily the negative energy will come in. Yeah. And how to remain positive and active? You need to stay calm. Okay, don't get irritated, don't get impatient. Yeah, so be calm. So we are so lucky because you work under PCA. Every time you look at PCA, it reminded you that I have to stay positive, stay active, and stay calm. Okay, so from now on, every time when you see your agent, you see each other, just say PCA spirit. Yeah, PCA spirit, and this spirit is going to carry you, yeah, very far, and going to make you to emerge to become the winner. All right, so we are number 1, PCA. So now I'm moving into the 5th awareness. I will spend a little bit more time on the 5th awareness. Basically, that's the gist of my presentation. I'll take the next about 9 to 10 minutes. The 5th awareness, I want you to have this anchoring into your mind. Yeah, it is always possible to turn crisis into opportunity. Okay, if you look at the yin and the yang principle, for those who know Chinese, the yin and the yang principle, it says whenever they give you the yin, there is always an equal yang around. Whenever they give the yang, also you need to be careful, there's a yin. So the yin and yang is the crisis and the opportunity. Yeah. So what it actually means is, ladies and gentlemen, if you understand, embrace this principle, nothing in this world comes single dimensional. All right, I repeat, nothing in this will come single dimensional. When it gives you the crisis, just remind yourself, there is always an equal opportunity lying ahead. Yeah, the world is existed in this manner. You cannot run away. Even the scientists cannot define this principle. Okay, but what do we need to do? Seize for it. Instead of staying around doing nothing, seize for it, and you are going to find it. Okay, so the next 8 minutes, I'm going to help you to seize this opportunity instead of crisis. All right, and to turn crisis into opportunity in our business, particularly, I'm focusing on this business. Yeah, of course, Ken just now focus on the big environment. Now I'm focusing on your inner world, your mindset. Okay, so there are 4 key essentials you must uphold, you must understand, you must embrace in order to turn this crisis into opportunity. So what are these 4 essentials? These 4 essentials nicely fit into what I call the 1, 2, 3, 4, a formula of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what is the 1? Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, it gives you the 1 and must go back to the fundamental of life insurance. What is the 1 and the most important 1 purpose of life insurance? I will share a little bit more with you this one. Yeah, a lot of people, of course, you can talk about love, responsibility, and all that, food on the table and all that. But later, I'm going to share with you. There's only one purpose why life insurance is in existence. Okay? If you know this, if you can embrace this, you can understand this, and put into your subconscious, you are going to become so easy and so productive in the long time to come. Yeah. And arising from this purpose, you know, when we operate in two fundamental principles. Yeah. Later I will share with you. And basing on this, we start to look at this COVID-19. Yeah. What are the three crises that during this period that has been created arising from this COVID-19? So I'm going to share with you the three unprecedented risks that has been created, yeah, during this period. And finally, because of this the risk that has been created, what should I do? What should I do? So there are 4 activities that you need to do to be a winner, to bring yourself from the crisis into the activity. But ladies and gentlemen, because of the time constraint, I will share today 1, 2, 3. But don't worry, next week I will come back to share with you the 4 critical activities. Yeah, I will suggest many of you, I do a bit of promotion. Go and talk to those who are not here today. Bring them in next week. I guarantee you, it is going to be so beneficial to you and all of them if you understand what are the 4 critical activities that you need to do during the period. Okay, so let me go into, I have another 5 more minutes. Let me quickly go into the 1, 2, 3. Go into the 1, 2, 3. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, what is the one? Yeah. What is the number 1 purpose why life insurance is created? Life insurance has been in existence in human history for the last 200 years. Okay. But if we trace back to the root, the origin of life insurance when it was existed, why? What caused? What are the driving force that driven life insurance to be created? Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one word. Yeah, the word is called risk. R-I-S-K. You can see insurance risk in the picture. Yeah. Today, because of risk, that's why insurance is existed 200 years ago. Because people are facing a lot more risk compared to maybe a few hundred years ago, suddenly they realize individual effort, you can no longer handle and manage the risk well. So you need to go into a pooling concept. You start to pool people in to share the risk so that everybody, their share become lesser. Then you can manage the risk better. Yeah, that's why, ladies and gentlemen, please bear in mind, yeah, I don't care how long you've been in this business. Let me put you back on the right footing. Life insurance is existed because of risk. So as a result, if you understand this, as a result, yeah, whenever there's a risk, people see it as a crisis. But for us, because we are existed because of risk, whenever we see risk, straight away you must tell your mind, you are seeing opportunity. Yeah. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, yeah. So what are we helping people? Okay. I know many of you say insurance help people to transfer the risk and all that, but I want to give you the correct understanding. We are not helping people to eliminate the risk and all that. If you need to die, you have to die. If you have to get contracted, you have to get contracted. But what are we helping people? We are helping people to manage the eyes of risk. What is eyes? The impact, the consequences, and the effect. I love this. I know the short form of this, the eyes. So I always tell my client, if you don't have insurance protection, and when you strike with something, your world will become so cold. You will hit with the eyes. But the moment you have insurance program, we will help you to reduce the eyes. Then your family don't have to go into the coldness. Yeah, your family can start to feel warmer. Yeah, so this is what we provide to people. Yeah, so you tell people, yeah, we are helping them to solve the risk that they are facing. They are worried. Yeah, so if you understand this principle, this purpose, then you realize the bigger the risk, the bigger the needs for life insurance, hence the bigger opportunity for the life insurance business. I want to share 3 typical examples with you. Of course, I have many, but just I want to share 3. You know, China, the insurance market start opening up. WTO is in 2002. And 2003, I was posted to China. I've witnessed how the insurance market grow in China. Yeah. And you know, at which time period, the insurance penetration suddenly booming. Suddenly, you know, the needs explode. It was during the 2008, the Sichuan big earthquake. I was there. Ladies and gentlemen, because of this earthquake, it suddenly bring the awareness to a lot more people that human is so fragile. Life is so vulnerable. So people, the sense of insecurity was at the peak. And during that period, after the earthquake, we see many more people start to approach agent to discuss about their protection plan. So ladies and gentlemen, but to many industry, that earthquake was a crisis. But on the contrary, to the life insurance business, it was an opportunity. And in Taiwan, it's the same. When was Taiwan, the insurance market grow very, very well, exponentially? It was during the 1999, the September 21 big earthquake. The same. After the earthquake, people line up to buy insurance. Okay. And I give another example of SARS. I was posted from Malaysia Prudential to Citigroup to temporarily leading the Citigroup. And 2003, I was at the hottest spot. That year, the whole industry was negative. But Citi Prudential will grow very well. You know why? Because the rest see crisis and we are able to turn around to see the opportunity. Okay? So ladies and gentlemen, bear in mind the purpose of life insurance, yeah, is to help people to solve the risk, the problem that they are facing. Yeah. So I want to put this statement to you this period. As a result of this purpose, yeah, people see COVID-19 as a crisis. I want you to remind yourself, we see COVID-19 as an opportunity. But let me make it clear, the opportunity is not about making more money and all that. No, that's wrong. I think that's an opportunity for us to show to a lot more people the value and the purpose of life insurance. Yeah, no other better time than now. Okay, so that's the first purpose. And this purpose will bring us to the 2 fundamental principles. If you understand that we are help people to managing risk, we are the eyes of risk. What are these 2 principles? This one you must echo in. I think this one applied to Ken as well. I believe Ken will share the same. Yeah, in investment. A risk is not a risk if you know how to manage it well. Okay? If you look at the example I showed, the car racing, I don't know how many of you have watched Formula 1 before. I have done once. Yeah. You know, during this Formula 1, many people recognize that car racing is a dangerous sport. But how many of you know, in fact, the death and serious injury in car racing is actually lower than on the road. You know, when you are in the car racing, you see when the car turn and upside down and then got into fire. You probably think that the driver will have serious injury or is going to die. But to our surprise, usually this driver will just push out the door and walk out, and he's okay. He's okay. Why is that so? Because they are the professional, they know how to manage the risk. So a risk is not a risk if you know how to manage well. So this is the principle that you have to share with your client during this moment. Because a lot of them are worried. So you tell them they need a professional to help them to manage the risk. Okay. Then let's lead on to the second principle. Okay. Because we are helping people to manage the risk, please bear in mind, we are not selling products. What are we offering? We offer the 2S, solution and the services to help people to manage the eyes of risk. That is the positioning that every one of us must have. Today, why a lot of people, agents are having call reluctant? Why so many agents come in and they don't do well? Because they have psychological barrier. because they are thinking that they are selling product to people, they are taking advantage on their friend and all that. That's why whenever you have this mindset, selling product, when people reject you, you get frustrated. But today, if you position yourself, no, I am a solution provider, I am a professional services provider, then when people rejected you, you don't feel frustrated, you don't feel upset, you just feel puzzling. How come he doesn't know? That is his problem. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the principle that you must uphold throughout your career in life insurance. All right. So, and arising of this, bring us to the Dvss statement. Remember, we are not selling. We are helping people to buy the most appropriate solution to solve their problem. Okay? Because whenever you are thinking of selling, your clients see you as on the opposite side. But when you position yourself as helping them to buy, you are their buddy. You are standing in the same side with them. And they will receive you, accept you much better. So bear in mind, yeah. And this COVID-19 give us this opportunity to highlight to a lot more people, what are we doing? Okay, so these are the two principles, and I have just only 3-4 minutes. Let me go to the, as a result, just like I said, the purpose is for us to manage the risk. Now, risk is opportunity. Now we have to come to a reality. This COVID-19 that hitting the whole world, what are the risks that has been created out of this COVID-19? Because if you cannot see that, you cannot capitalize the opportunity, okay? So I'm going to share with you, there are 3 unprecedented risks, yeah, that has been created. What is the first risk? Life and health risk. Yeah. Today, the world has surpassing more than 2.5 million of confirmed cases. Yeah. Yeah. And there are more than 18,000 deaths, 180,000 deaths and all that. It has created unprecedented during our era, the life and health risk. Yeah. A lot more people are worried. Okay. Yeah. And I want to share this video. A few days ago, I was watching a video, yeah, a clips from a doctor from US. This doctor was sharing in tears. He was saying, every day I've seen so many people dying. Yeah. And he said, do you know what is the one question, the last question that many of these people who die, they ask me, what is the last question? You may be surprised, you know what they ask? Who is going to pay for my medical bill? Don't worry. So these people, without a medical plan, you know, they have to go. They don't go in peace of mind. Yeah, they are worried that the hospital may chase after the family. Yeah. And a lot of people are having a lot of this fear. Okay. So that is exactly the risk has been created today. Okay. And what is the second risk today? What Ken mentioned just now? The financial risk, financial economics risk. Yeah. As a result, all the central bank from all countries are reducing their interest rate. And next thing I'm going to share with you, you know, arising for the decreasing interest rate. What will be created? Impact your consumer, the customer, from the angle of life insurance. Okay? 2 things I'm going to quickly let you know. When the interest rates are dropping, it actually means, you know, the saving products, the usual saving product with okay, you know, relatively okay interest rate, the return, yeah, because we always price in the interest rate in formulating our product, it's going to reduce. It's going to come down. And that's why, just for information, from July 1st this year in Taiwan, no more saving products, no more insurance saving product. So we have this window period to share this with our client to quickly lock in a long-term saving products. And number 2, with a dropping interest rate, if you ask all the actuary, they will tell you premium is going to come up, especially the medical plan. So you have to share this. You know, this risk will impact on your customer in terms of the purchasing of life insurance. So it's best to buy now. Don't wait. Yeah. And I will share with you a lot more next week. And what are the third risks? Ladies and gentlemen, unemployment risk. There are so many, industry has been hit. I was so shocked that when yesterday I saw the Virgin Airline went bankrupt, and Malaysia, for example, in Malaysia, we predicted close to 2 million people will be losing out job in the next 6 months. Yeah, and many countries are hitting the same. So which means very soon, there'll be influx of huge number of good people in the market who are confused, who got no job. So tell me, if you want to build agency during this period, that is the best timing to do recruitment. If I'm still leading the company, I will quickly come up with a good financing scheme. And I'm going to really attract all the talent, the good people to join me. And that is going to give me a long-term effect, positive effect, many years to come. Yeah. And also I want to highlight another opportunity, because during this period also is a graduation period. Yeah, graduation period. In many countries, fresh graduate is about to join the labor market. But I feel sorry for the fresh graduate today. Why? Because this year, all the fresh graduates will have this employment problem. It's worse than during the last 2 financial crises. So what it means is there will be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of new graduates who are good, talented, who will be confused, who are in the market and don't know what to do. So I urge all the leaders who are listening to me, don't waste this opportunity. If I were to be you, I will take this period to quickly restructure my talk, my career talk, my business opportunity talk, and that is echoing the current situation. Yeah. And you are going to build a mega agency during this period. Yeah. So these are the 3 unprecedented risks that will be created. Then I ask yourself one question. Can life insurance business help to reduce this risk? Ladies and gentlemen, it's 100% yes. In fact, these 3 risks, the best solution is in our hand. Okay? So the one purpose to unprecedented, the people, and the 3 risks. And in order to turn around, you need the 4 key activities. What are the 4 key activities? Let me run through. Quickly. Activity number 1, you need to increase your PBA, your personal branding awareness in the mind of your client. This is the best period for you to sharpen, deepen your relationship with your client. Yeah. During the normal time, your client has no time for you. Now they have a lot of time, a whole world of time for you. And number 2, this is the time for you to increase your sales. Next week, I'm going to share with you. In fact, from what our observation, this period, the closing ratio has increased so much if you care to talk to people. Yeah. Because of the fear. Yeah. If you have the right script, next week I'm going to share with you some script, some sales idea. Yeah. You are going to hit them just like that. Yeah. And number 3, this is the period just I just mentioned to increase your recruitment. Yeah. No other better time. But number 4, this is the period for you to build a lot more center of referral. Okay. So these are the 4 activities that you have to do. I share with all my students, I want to let you know, I'm coaching all the top team in different countries, and this period, their result shooting up, okay? Because they are doing all these 4 things. Yeah, and next week I'm going into detail, how are you going to organize these 4 activities effectively and really hit your customer, and that will help you to turn around, okay? And I'll put it to be continued on April 30th. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop here, because my time's up. I would like to invite, Mac back to facilitate the subsequent session. So Prudential, thank you very much. Love to talk to you again. And it's a reunion. Thank you very much.
Karhor, thank you for that. Very, very exciting. Hey, I had a question for you as I was watching your presentation. I was particularly struck by the one slide where you said, during normal times, ability is greater than attitude. But during times of crisis, attitude is more important than ability. Yeah. Can you say more about that? And Yeah, two-part question. So first, can you say a bit more about that? How did you come to that conclusion?
Okay. We do get into the psychology of the salespeople. Not only salespeople, the human. If you really understand the human model, usually our action is driven by emotion rather than logic. Yeah. And when you are facing the logic and the emotion, usually it's the emotion that drives the action. For example, we all know that logically, we all know that exercise is good. But today, if you have a choice to wake up at 6:30 to exercise, you know it's good, or to remain sleep until 9 o'clock, if you are not forced to, most people will choose to sleep. Yeah. So our action is driven by emotional. And so that's why during this crisis period, for you to initiate good action, you actually require the good emotion. That's the good attitude. Otherwise, you may have all the skill set that you have. Like example, I mentioned just now, the TOT. But because you are having so suppression, frustration, and all that, then it will lead you into inaction. And with inaction, you will not get the result.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the second question, how do you keep a good attitude? What's your personal advice on how to keep a positive attitude?
Okay. Of course, this is probably a full 5 days program, but a quick one. Yeah, you need to monitor your thoughts. You need to monitor your thoughts. And whenever a negative thoughts come in, which means you do not allow yourself going into the unconscious mode. You must always check back your thoughts. Am I in the positive thoughts or negative? Okay. So that's why just now I mentioned about the PCA spirit. To keep positive, you need to be calm. Because if you are irritated, you are impatient, straight away it set you into the negative thoughts. Yeah. And the best way to keep you positive is remain active. Yeah. Whenever you're not active, I tell you, all the negative energy will come. Yeah. So you uphold the PCA spirit, then you'll be okay.
Yeah, and in the PCA spirit slide, you showed a marathon happening. And for me personally, you know, one way that I stay active and moving is I just make a commitment to myself to get out of the house and go for a bike ride. Every day for an hour, I'm out and moving. Yes. And I have to say, when I first started cycling I'd say about 3 years ago, I don't know, it was 50% because I enjoyed it and 50% because of the exercise. But today, when it's my chance to get out of the house, it's 99% because I love it, right? I want to go do it because it feels so good. I don't care too much about the exercise. I care about it because I just love the feeling of being out of the house.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you could draw a similar parallel to what we're talking about here when it comes to maintaining a positive spirit. Yeah. Do the things that make you happy, that get you to light up, and take that energy then and apply it to your work.
Yeah. Matt, can I add on one sentence?
Yeah.
In fact, my advice to the agency people, the biggest danger to us is not the COVID-19. The biggest danger to us is our attitude, because suddenly we found a good reason for us to slow down. Because subconsciously you're going to convince yourself the whole world is slowing down. So what's wrong if I slow down? That is the biggest danger. I call it the virus to the agency force. Yeah. And no one can argue with you, because people accepted that the world is going to slow down.
Yeah.
So
That's a very good point. Well, with that, let's bring back Ken, and we'll do a bit of Q&A now. Ken, welcome back. I see your video coming on. Hi there. There you are. I wanted to ask, is there anything that stood out to you from Karhur's presentation? So after you gave yours and then you saw his, anything strike you?
No, I think, sort of that notion of, being in a marathon, you can't look at things sort of just very short term, especially sort of in a short term, sort of volatile environment. There's always going to be irrational sort of market behavior. Things, with stocks or even bonds, they tend to always overshoot on the way up and they always tend to overshoot on the way down. So, we see a lot of similarities when it comes to whether be it, investing in markets or, sort of looking at other types of scenarios. So I think people just have to be a bit more rational and use that sort of psychological effect to try to take advantage of, sometimes of the situation, make the most of it. but your goal and and so what you're trying to do is for the medium and to the longer term, right?
Yeah. As you're saying, that's an investing principle that applies to the agency force as well. So you were seeing parallel to those two. Hey, Ken, I think one of the first questions might be for you. It's a very interesting one. Is oil and gas a good sector to invest in at the moment?
Well, if you look at the May futures contract, just a couple of days ago, it was negative. But, the thing is that you have to think about this sort of for a medium to longer term, right? When things gradually come back online, there is still going to be a demand for oil. And obviously, because of the fact that it has come down so much now, is that there's not much more room further to go down lower, right? Yes, it can be negative again, but chances are, when things gradually come back up, you could definitely see a bit of a pickup, right? We saw that, just a couple months ago, and we took advantage of the situation by buying a Chinese oil company. When the shares fell significantly, and then there was a bit of a turnaround, in terms of oil prices for a short period of time, then, the share prices went up 20, 30%. So there's obviously those type of opportunities. Again, we never suggest to sort of, time these things and try to pick a bottom, but, things will come back. And as a result, more medium to longer term, there is definitely opportunities.
Cool. The next question I'll ask to you both, Karhor, I'll give you the first chance at it. Now, Karhor, you've been a CEO in Malaysia and in China. And so I'm sure you think about the economy quite deeply as well. So here's the next question. What's the likelihood of this crisis deteriorating into a 1929-like depression triggered by rounds and rounds of mass unemployment and prolonged COVID cases? Karhor, what do you think? What's your outlook on that?
Okay, I wish I have a crystal ball. I have a crystal ball, but in fact, in front of me, there's a crystal ball. I sincerely believe it will not. It will not. Yeah. The reason why, especially Asia, as what Ken mentioned just now, because if you look at it, during the 1920s, that big economic crisis, that was because people are so isolated. Yeah, information are not free flow. People are not having this capability to anticipate what will become forthcoming and all that. But today, if you look at Asia, yeah, of course, I am not talking about the Western because that's very different. Yeah, if you talk about Asia, all countries are on alert. All countries are on alert. And they are taking all the necessary steps to really, first, to really counter these pandemics and to really, bring the curve down, not only flat, to bring the curve down and all that. And secondly, if you look at Asia itself, particularly in China, because I was in China, in fact, if you look at it, if you are not set a high standard, in fact, Asia, particularly China and all that, the domestic demand itself is actually very strong. They can survive on this domestic demand. Yeah. And you also see there are more and more collaboration among the Asian countries. So as a result, out of a lot of this initiative, and all countries are quickly putting up the initiative. For example, Malaysia, we have just launched two new schemes. The first one is 250 billion. We call it the Perangsang initiative. And also we quickly come up with the SME program to stimulate the SME. So you can see the action are much faster today. So as a result, I don't foresee that kind of situation is going to happen this time. I remain more positive.
I hope you're right. Ken, how about you? What do you
think?
I
think he hit on nail where the global coordination is much better now than what we had in the 20s. And specifically, we're seeing that a lot of the governments around the world are acting, much quicker, whether it be with their central banks lowering interest rates, or specifically governments in, sort of providing various types of stimulus. So, the reaction time is much quicker now. And as Karhor mentioned earlier, there's a lot more information that's out there now as compared to, sort of what we had in the 20s, which was much more difficult. So because of that, and because of, sort of governments working more closer together, a lot more ties with global trade and everything else, you would expect for things to recover quickly. And potentially, even if we don't get into a V-shaped recovery, things should gradually come back online because, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of pinned up demand. People do want to go out and consume and invest and, buy different things, but it's about sort of building that confidence. And once that confidence is back, then, things can start to normalize much quicker.
Got it.
Matt, can I add on a little bit
Of
more?
course.
Yeah. Because arising from this question, I want to share my experience between the 2003, the SARS, and the COVID-19 today. Yeah. So what is the difference? I think that will give a better perspective. During the SARS period, when I was heading the China operation, when we hit with this SARS pandemics, we are really, in deep problem because whenever you're not allowed to go out, you're not allowed to go out. You cannot reach your customer, you cannot reach your client because at that time, no online, no Zoom, no webcam and all that. Yeah. So you can only throw handphone. And the worst is there's no online underwriting, there's no online signing of policy. You cannot conduct sales. But today I see it's an opportunity because all the online, even the people who never touch IT, they start to play with the IT already. There are so many old people start to sing online and all that.
Yeah.
I'm predicting because I'm also sharing the trend, the post-pandemics. I'm seeing the familiarity, the acceptance of the IT culture, the formulation of this IT culture because of this COVID-19 has been sped up by at least 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
So today we are in a better position. Yeah.
Let me do one more question for you both. Ken, to you, this is an interesting one. What's your take on the US dollar at the moment?
Well, it's one of those situations where the US dollar has been very strong over the past, sort of 10 years. In particular, with low interest rates, everybody just, wanted to pile into the US dollar. But more recently, the fact is, even though the US Fed has lowered their interest rates, dollar remained fairly strong because of uncertainty. And when things are uncertain, people always tend to invest in the US dollar. But purely from a valuation and sort of where we look at from a just overall levels perspective, it is a bit overvalued. And the way we look at it is that when we do see a slight correction in the US dollar, things starts to normalize again. What tends to happen is that emerging markets and also Asian markets tend to be better when the US dollar weakens, because you have to think about it like this. When the dollar weakens, people will then start to want to invest maybe a bit less in the US and maybe redeploy their capital. And when they redeploy their capital, where will they go to? They'll tend to go to places where, potentially the currency tends to be undervalued or interest rates tends to be a bit higher. And this scenario, Asia actually is a likely scenario where some of those assets that's been investing in the US for the past 10 years might actually come to. So we definitely do think that when things start to normalize again, you might actually start to see a bit of a weakening of the dollar, which should definitely benefit a lot of the capital markets here in Asia.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, last question for you, Karhor. Now this is an interesting one. You said that you grew up through the ranks.
Yes.
You came up through the ranks. So you understand what it's like to be on the ground.
Correct.
This question sounds like it's very much from the ground. Yeah, so here we go. How do you deal with the challenge in advising customers who need our products but might not have enough resources to pay for it or are concerned about putting resources towards our products during these risky times? What's your advice to an agent on the ground in that
I love this question because whenever I share, I've been asked with this question. It's very real. It's very real. But my take for that is, my answer to that is, I will advise my client. If today you see that you are worried, you see that there's a crisis, there's a risk happening. Yeah, if today 8 to 10% of your annual budget is a problem to you, what happens if something really bad happens and it requires you to take out 8 to 10 years of your total income? Yeah, isn't that become even bigger problem? 8 to 10% of annual income, you can easily get it through by tightening your belt. Yes or no? You just eat a little bit lesser and all that. But 8 to 10 years of total income. No matter how tight you want to tighten your belt, you cannot go through.
Yeah.
So
So
you share this with your client.
So you're talking about making sure they understand the stakes. And
Correct.
small investment that can be made in order to protect against a much more
Correct.
significant
Yeah. And
financial.
what they can do is, instead of paying annual, they can pay monthly first. Yeah, it's very small. Yeah, if they really understand. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Karhor, and thank you, Ken. We appreciate both of you joining us and all of your sharings today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so just to close up this week, guys, next week we'll bring Karhor back. He will be joined by 4 agency leaders from around the region to talk to us about some best practices for keeping our businesses moving and keeping our activities up during these interesting times. Next week's session will be on Thursday because in some countries it's a public holiday on Friday. So please stay tuned. Look out for the registration EDM from your training departments. And until then, be well. We'll see you next week on Thursday with Karhor and our agency leaders who are joining us. Talk soon, guys.
We all share the same destination. We all work together as one. In this space there's only one vision, and that's to be the number one. We all have the right combination. Care and quality, there's no compromise. Doing the very best will be our mission. It's something that we need to realize. It's something very special in our eyes. We are potential. Our values mean a lot. We are the people who give it all we got. With a sunny disposition, we can overcome the odds. Yes, we have a valid reason to believe. We are number one. Take one more step, reach out for excellence. We'll do whatever it takes to touch the sky, and we'll help each other reach our aspirations. We know that we can do it if we strive. We are potential. Our values mean a lot. We are the people who give it all we got. With a sunny disposition, we can overcome the odds. Yes, we have a valid reason to believe. We are number one. We are number one.